Hello everyone, and welcome back to the second part of my experience with building an electric bike. Just to give a quick recap of what we did or what we talked about in the first part of my video. We started with the procedure of buying and beaten up old bike, then dismantling the bike, followed by compartmentalizing the parts into discard and usable section. Excuse me. Followed by painting. Today I'm going to elaborate a little more on painting. There are a couple of reasons. Painting is a major part of aesthetics. Bike we are building, it has to have a certain appeal, and you should have a feel-good factor while riding the bike. Second part is painting is a very meticulous and a tedious procedure. A small mistake at any step of the procedure and you're back to square one. You have to redo the whole job. To start with the painting job, it starts with removal of the material. A quick question for you. How do you want to remove the material, or what's the procedure? Your options are sanding it down with a machine, or using a chemical solution. Hit pause and think for a while. Sanding involves removing material using an abrasive grit paper or sandpaper. It involves deeper cuts with a heavier material removal. I'll give you a quick tip. The material layers or the paint layer are not uniform on certain parts of your bike. I'll give an example. If you consider a fuel tank, there are multiple layers on the top and the side of the fuel tank, but you generally won't even find a paint layer or maybe a single layer beneath the tank, the part that rests on the chassis. So I would recommend using a paint solution, a paint removal solution that you get at the shop, a painting shop, and apply it. Paint removal solution doesn't affect the material surfaces. Don't use paint removal solution for the plastic parts. Generally, you use water sanding for the plastic parts. Water sanding is basically adding a water along with your sanding procedure. You use a 320 grit instead of a 80 grit paper. Talk about the grit numbers on the sanding paper. Lower the number, heavier or coarser is the paper. If you want a fine finishing, you go with the higher number, maybe 1000 or even 2000 grit paper. If you want to remove more material, use a lower number, say 80, 100, 200 grit paper. After the paint removal, it is followed by examining. Examining the parts is generally carried out by watching the surface irregularities or if it needs any kind of repairs. If it's a metal surfaces, you generally look out for dents in the surfaces or any kind of cracks or breaking of the part. You follow mechanical repair procedures like welding, soldering, and so on to fix them. You got to fix the part before you start painting them. For plastic parts, you generally do a composite repairs. You can take help of any auto or a body repair shops that is close to your house. And so after examining, your next procedure will be applying an epoxy. Don't be lazy. Make sure you use an epoxy layer or you apply epoxy layer before you start the painting work. Before epoxy, always clean your parts with soap solution and rinse it with clean water. Let it dry and then you start with the epoxy layer. There are two advantages of using an epoxy. First, it protects your metal parts from rusting, and second, epoxy is always good because it binds the paint and the surface to which you are applying the paint. During epoxy, if you still find any surface irregularities, generally use a putty or a similar solution which you can use for uniforming the surfaces. When you sand down the putty, generally again a water sanding procedure is used. After applying your putty, after sanding it down, again a layer of epoxy is been applied. Always make sure there's an epoxy layer beneath your paint layer. Before applying your paint or going for the next painting procedure, always use or always water sand down the epoxy. That creates a smoother surface for the paint to have a uniform spreading on the surface of the epoxy. For the painting, I got a quick question for you again. Hit pause and think about the question. Think about the answers. What is the right procedure for applying paint? Do you go from top to bottom and keep on doing that, or do you go from side to side and continue? Hit pause and think about it. Well, the answer to that is either procedure is right. Whether you go from bottom to top, top to bottom, continue that, or you go from side to side. The only precaution you have to take is you have to be uniform in your applications. You have to maintain a certain distance and be constant with that distance. You have to cover up the area in which you are trying to paint to have minimum air movements. You have to mask the parts to which you don't want to, or you want to avoid them from painting. Dry your paint layers before you reapply the second coats. Have multiple layers of coats or paints, and keep an eye for the shade of the colors that you are trying to apply. And the final point is basically having a final coat on each paint or each layer, or after the painting the bike. And the reason is it improves the durability of the paint. It might give a longer life to your painting job. So that's about for today. If you like my video, please share with your friends, subscribe to my channel, leave the comment in your comment section, do answer to the questions that I've asked in the videos. Thank you, take care.